Hi, everybody. My name is Mark. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. If you want to go to the next slide, because I'm new to the community. I've been in Grand Forks since May. I've been a CO since 2019. My first posting was Chilliwack. I'm originally from Alberta. I grew up in a small town, so coming to Grand Forks, it's heaven. It's so much better than the big city, Chilliwack, the Lower Mainland. Not the best place to be as a game warden. What else do I got written up there? So yeah, I went to Lethbridge College, like Grace had said before. I graduated with my Bachelor of Applied Science in Conservation Enforcement, and I've worked seasonally kind of throughout Western Canada. I've done a season in Manitoba, a season in Alberta, kind of near home, and I've worked in Terrace, Vernon, Maple Ridge, full time in Chilliwack. That's all right. So yeah, I've been here since May. Absolutely love it. A lot more proactive work. We're actually getting out in the field quite a bit, checking people fishing, people hunting, all that kind of stuff. The next slide after this one is about just the CO service in general. So I'll refer to it as that. It's called the Conservation Officer Service, obviously. So yeah, it was founded in 1905. It's been kind of through a few different, I don't know if it's changed names or roles. Generally, I think it started as a provincial police force, and then we just kind of migrated towards specializing in fish and wildlife enforcement and environmental stuff as well. So game wardens, when they first started, they were pretty much given a truck, a badge, and the regulations book and a ticket book, and they're like, here, go enforce these and write tickets and do whatever. Nowadays, it's a little bit different. We actually go through quite a bit of training. It's 4 months in total. When I went through it, it was 2 months on, then 2 months in your district doing field work, and then another 2 months back in training to wrap things up. We're trained on all kinds of different stuff, firearms, defensive tactics. What else is up there? Emergency vehicle operations, how to do proper investigations, swiftwater rescue. So we have the capacity to help out search and rescue operations. We're not going to be the main ones there, but like we'd be like downstream containment and things like that. Boat operations, off-road vehicle stuff, all kinds of fun stuff for 4 months there. So as a conservation officer, I hold a conservation officer appointment and a special provincial constable appointment. Sections for those are up there under the respective legislation. So that's something I have on me. I have like a physical, like a metal badge, just like a police officer, and then 2 ID cards that go along with that. Definitely, if the public is like, I want to see your badge, that's no problem. Like we have to present that if somebody asks us for that. We enforce 33 pieces of legislation. I'm not going to name them all because I probably don't even know them all. There's so many out there that COs are just lumped into. I sometimes refer to us as the jack of all trades of law enforcement because we do have authorities under so many pieces of legislation. But what we primarily focus on, especially this time of year, is going to be the Wildlife Act for all the hunting, the Fisheries Act for fishing, and the Environmental Management Act. That'll capture like the open burning, the burning prohibited material, dumping, that kinds of stuff. And throughout the whole province, there's 125 uniformed officers. That includes field officers like what I am and my supervisors who are referred to as sergeants. They also go about and work in the field as well. So just some stats on what we've been up to since I've been here, at least in May. I've been here since May, and my partner Brock, he's been here since last year at least. December. Oh, it's been 2 years, I guess, coming up in December that he's been here. So he's been here a little while. I'm sure some of you guys have met him and know him. So between the two of us, we've done all these kinds of events. So Brock's gone to the turkey shoot at the range. I did the range day event. We've both done school talks, and I've attended some events with Laura as well. Usually I'll just piggyback off her booth because she got a really nice booth set up, and I just show up with a little bag of swag and answer some questions that the public might have in regards to enforcement or how the problem gets dealt with. We most recently did the Fire Prevention Day in Grand Forks, if any of you attended that. And I also marched at the Remembrance Day ceremony in Grand Forks just the other day, actually. So a big part of what we did over the summer was fire ban patrols. We enforce the fire bans. We don't do like the big major investigations on what the causes of the wildfires are, but when there's a ban in place, we'll actually go around and we will patrol the Crown land, we'll patrol the wreck sites, and we'll make sure that nobody is actually having legitimate wood burning fires. Propane fires are okay because we do get a lot of calls about fires burning, and when we do go follow up with them, generally they are propane fires. Most people are pretty compliant with that. Like nobody wants to see our communities burned down, right? Because so far like, we were on the back roads every weekend pretty much during the fire ban, and we wrote one ticket all summer, so that's pretty good. And then we also, this photo was from Kelowna. We went at the kind of mid to end of August. We helped out in West Kelowna there with the fires. Our duty was to be on the boats and patrol the lake where the helicopters were picking up water, and when the water bombers were coming, we're making sure that there's no other boats getting in the way and interfering with those firefighting efforts. And then if we weren't on the boat, we were at a road check, just making sure like the closed areas that no one else is going through there. So these are some of the stats on the calls we got so far this year. I did from January 1st pretty much until now. So the bear calls, we had 67 bear calls in total. I'm used to a lot more than that, so I think these numbers are kind of low, but I think it's standard in the area for these calls. So I broke it down by district. So 18 from Christina Lake, 33 in Grand Forks, 14 in Greenwood, 9 in Midway, and 2 in Rock Creek. And then for bears, so we got 67 calls about bears, and we only ended up euthanizing 5 bears the whole year. So I kind of broke down why we euthanized these bears. So 2 of them had entered homes, which is a big line that we don't let bears cross, right? We don't want them to know that behavior and keep doing it. So that's something, unfortunately, we will euthanize bears for. And I think the 3 other ones were, one in Greenwood was actually like a garbage bear through and through. Like it was breaking into sheds and getting freezers and being it had the potential to be a public safety issue. So we euthanized that one. And then the other 2 were humane. One was hit on the road, and the other one, it was bound. And when Brock went release it, there was something wrong with it. So we ended up having to euthanize it, unfortunately. But nobody likes doing that kind of stuff. That's not why I'm in this role. And definitely calling the RAP line does not mean a bear gets shot. So for cougar calls, we had 22 calls in total in the boundary. And we did set up traps to try and catch some cougars, as I will get into later, as I'm sure most of you are aware in Christina Lake here. But we were unsuccessful. It's not a guaranteed science that when we set a trap, a cougar is going to come back and go into our traps. But we do what we can to deal with the cougars that come into conflict. It's not a perfect science. Animals are going to be wild. There's no way to predict them 100%. But we set traps to try to get rid of the nuisance or the conflict wildlife. And so this point right here is circled, kind of important. The best way to reduce conflicts is to let us know. I know there's a big misconception out there that calling the RAP line and letting the COs know is just going to end up in dead wildlife. The reason I say it's a misconception is because most of the time when we get calls is because people are calling like, hey, this bear just broke into my house, or hey, this bear is breaking into my car, or doing something really wrong that, okay, well, now we have to act on this. If you call us when, hey, the bear is like getting into my neighbor's garbage, or the bear is like just in the area, at least we'll know about it. We might not, like we're going to call people back and provide some advice, do that kind of stuff. I'll get into like how we deal with calls once they're received a little later. But that's the number to call, the RAP line. It's the report all poachers and polluters. If you don't know it, it's right there, or you can easily Google it online, just to report problem wildlife. So yes, this slide talks about what happens when you do call the RAP line. So it kind of goes into an automated phone tree, and it'll just say like, oh, option 1 for problem wildlife, option 2 for enforcement complaints, and then there's a few other options. If you're reporting human-wildlife conflict, I think it's option 1, like 90% sure. I don't call the RAP line too often myself. So what happens, the dispatcher will pick up the phone, they'll take your information and the general details of the call, and they type it up into an email. So once they type it up, a few things happen. If it's just like, say, a sighting, like, hey, I live in the middle of nowhere and I saw a bear in my yard, and it's not doing anything, it's not getting any attractants, it's not causing issues, they'll just conclude it right there. We don't even see those reports sometimes. So I know a lot of people are like, well, I called the RAP line, I didn't get a call back. It's like, well, sometimes we don't even get those calls that are brought to our attention. That's one option. The most common option of what they do is say, okay, the bear's getting to my garbage or the bear's getting to my neighbor's garbage. They'll type that up. It's not like an imminent public safety issue. It's an attractive management issue, something for us to follow up on. Or if we get like a lot of reports of a bear hanging around a neighborhood, that's when we'll get Alora involved and we'll be like, hey, there's a bear here. Can you go do some door-to-door knocking and talk to people and kind of spread the education piece for it? So that's emailed to us and we see that as an email. So we'll review the information and determine the best course of action from there. The other times, like say it is something like a bear breaking into a house or like a bear that's injured and needs to be euthanized, something that needs our action like right away, they'll actually phone us and get a hold of us so that we're aware of this report that's going to come through and we can deal with that. Once we get the report, generally, like I said, the options, either there's not going to be any follow-up needed, like if it's just advice, or sometimes we'll send it on to Alora, to the Wild Safety BC program, or we can call people back and provide that kind of advice as well. I've had it lots where somebody's like, it's coming to my yard, I don't know why. So I'll just show up and well, I won't show up. I'll arrange to meet with people and show up and see what's going on, just to see if we can figure out why this bear is coming around. Because there's usually a reason, and it's usually some kind of food that maybe people aren't thinking about. If it is one of those calls, we get briefed on. Usually, if it's something important enough, we'll drop what we're doing and go and deal with it right away. So how do we make our decisions? We have policy on it. I'm just not making this up off the seat of my pants. We do have policies that have been developed by a lot of our seasoned officers that have had to learn and grow with the agency as time has progressed. So for black bears, I'm going to focus on black bears today, but there's two general policies we have. There's ones for single black bears that are just alone and just one alone bear, or there's family units where it's a sow and cubs. In each of those policies, the bears are broken down to 3 different categories. Category 3 is like that first bear I talked about, where it's in my yard in a rural area, it's munching on grass, and it's just there. It's just a sighting. That would be like a category 3 bear, just exhibiting normal, natural behavior and not a significant public safety issue. Not to say that each bear or like a bear is going to ever pose 0 public safety threat, because they are considered dangerous wildlife, but it would be generally considered low public safety risk. Category 2 bears, so that would be the bear that's in the garbage. Maybe it's the first time it's getting reported, or the first time people are talking about it. That's when it's like, okay, now we need to act on this. Usually it's about managing the people and the attractants. It's going to be providing that information. It's going to be making sure that people are putting their garbage away, putting their bird feeders away, cleaning up their compost, whatever the issue is. We're going to try and deal with the people and the attractants rather than the bears, because there's still a chance that the bears are going to leave and go back to a normal, natural behavior. So that's bears that may pose a threat to public safety or cause property damage. The keyword being may, not a high risk or will. So category 1 bears, those are our worst bears. Those are the ones that are now, they're food conditioned beyond any kind of hazing or any kind of other options to try and deter that bear from what behavior it's doing. So they pose a serious public safety threat, have caused significant property damage, or they're injured and suffering, and we're going to have to go and euthanize them just for humane reasons, right? So this is actually a screenshot from our policy on how we decide what we're going to do about a bear. So these policies, I actually Googled it. You can actually find these policies online. And this is a screenshot from the single bear one. So say, like it says, category 1, that would be the green. It's kind of hard to see between the green and the yellow. But that's category 1. So human injury and death, injured, or there's something wrong with it, enters a dwelling, livestock, pet killed. We got all these categories up there, and then we have all these locations of where it would be. So wilderness would be like it's at a wreck site, and say it was just a sighting. So it would be a category 3 bear, not a huge concern. And we would kind of go through that and work through that. I think we're pressed for time, so kind of speed things up a little bit. So yes, this is where I'm getting to the cougar in Christina Lake. I'm sure all of you guys were aware of it. I think it was beginning of September, late August when we got the calls. We did everything we could to catch this thing. The first instinct was to set like a live box trap, which I have a photo of on the next slide, because we weren't totally unsuccessful in catching something. We tried everything. We used deer legs because it had killed a deer in town, and we put catnip on it because they're just big cats. They do like catnip. And of course, the next day after that, that's when I caught the skunk. So I ended up releasing a story and photos. I didn't get sprayed, thankfully, but unfortunately, we didn't catch that cougar. I think it eventually just moved on its own. Either it ate all the food because there was a lot of house cats running around. Unfortunately, quite a few of them got eaten, and small wildlife, raccoons. There's lots of urban deer. There's a few deer carcasses found. So we tried, and eventually, unfortunately, we weren't able to remove that cougar from here. Because first we were going to give it to the bios. They were going to collar it, relocate it, use it as something for their studies. As time progressed, it was not interested in our traps. We're like, Kate, like, we're gonna have to move on to potentially euthanizing this thing. But it got away, unfortunately. Like I said, it's not an exact science. Sometimes we catch them, sometimes we don't. So in this instance, we did not, but we haven't had many more calls on it since. The next thing that I did was, I don't know if you heard, the elk that was on Christina Lake. It was caught in the boat line or the dock line. So that was it. When I showed up, it was caught. The dock line was like wrapped around one of his antlers, and it was thrashing around for so long, it actually broke the pedicles that were attached to the skull and the antlers. So they're just kind of flopping around like that. So I ended up darting it, and I chopped off the antlers so that it wasn't a legal elk anyways, but I was like, at least it won't be trying to fight or nothing like that. It stayed in the area a couple days because we got a call the next day or two that it was still there, head down kind of by the water. And we're like, oh, probably not going to survive. We're going to have to euthanize it. So we showed up and it was gone. So we're like, well, we'll give it a chance. And this was it after I just released it, actually, kind of drinking some water and just kind of, that's how it stayed for like a long time. And then the next photo, Lyra texted me, somebody took the photos of it. They found it. So this is what it looks like. Its antlers look kind of weird. And it was just seen in November. So clearly it's alive and thriving. So that's kind of a success story. So we'll see what it looks like next year if its antlers grow out like this, or if they recorrect to go that like that. I think that's about it. Yeah, that's kind of the update. Hopefully that's the info that you guys were looking for and after. And thanks everybody for paying attention.